Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say ready for this. You know I have patience.
For the last 7 years, Richie Torres has served as a member of the NYC Council. Within those years, Richie Torres chaired the Council's Committee on Public Housing, where he oversaw the New York City Housing Authority. However, under the watch of Richie Torres, NYCHA has been plagued by crime, corruption, violence, vermin, high lead paint levels, broken elevators, prolonged and unanswered maintenance requests, and cold winters due to lack of adequate heating. For 7 years, Richie Torres has been giving you the cold shoulder. That's why on November 3rd, don't get cold feet and vote for Patrick Delices for Congress to build a safer, stronger, and better Bronx.
My name is Patrick Delices, and I approve this message. Paid for by Patrick Delices for Congress.
Yes. Greetings, family. This is Kyle Dixon here, and co-host Kayode Bentley for another episode of the Grand Rising Collective podcast. So, again, introduce myself, Kyle Dixon here, one half of the team that is the Grand Rising Collective. And in reference of this platform, family, welcome back. For those of you all who are familiar with us and those who are not, going to give you a little bit of background on who we are and what we do. So my name is Kyle Dixon. I've been educated for 20 plus years, co-own a film production company, Precise Minds Films with Corey Smallwood. And I am an avid reader, avid learner, and created this podcast with Kayode to give a platform for those in our community who are doing great work, those people who are doing interesting things, and to be able to provide solutions to a lot of the problems that exist within our neighborhoods, communities, and families. And in reference of the term Grand Rising Collective, we start the term Grand Rising Collective as a term of endearment, as a reminder. So as to be able to rise to the occasion despite obstacles, challenges, and difficulties, and also be grand in what you do. So the greatness within you needs to come forth and be present. And that is just a constant reminder for us as we go forth on this platform to engage, inform, inspire, and empower. All right. So without further ado, pass over to my co-host, Kayode. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Brother Kyle. I appreciate you as always. My name is Kayode Bentley, and I think it's important that you understand who's speaking to you as well as who you're listening to. I wear a couple of hats, particularly three. One as president and founder of an organization called 4T's, Teaching Teens to Think, whose mission is to help inner city youth identify their inherent skill set, meaning what they do naturally, so that way they can use that inherent skill set that they've identified to complete their higher education, hence college, to establish a career and ultimately start a business if they choose to. The demographic in which my organization targets are teens and the city youth between the ages of 16 to 24. In addition to that hat, I wear a hat as professor at Fordham University, where I teach students who are pursuing their master's degrees in social justice and social service, so they can start organizations to do the like to uplift the inner city communities and just social services and justice to that level. The final hat that I wear is an advisor on the board of LIU, Long Island University, where I serve the same capacity that I do in Fordham University. Finally, I'm also a part of here, the Grand Rising Collective, and the purpose of here, or what I bring to the table of Grand Rising Collective, is to disseminate the information that I have with my colleagues to the inner city, not necessarily community, but the neighborhood, in order to expose them to the conversations that we have, to uplift them, to inform them, in order to make the community, the inner city neighborhood, a community, and to leverage the playing field economically. So without further ado, and all my long-windedness, you know how I am, that's who I am, that's what I do. And now I gotta say this, and this is gonna be a nice conversation that we have with a colleague of mine, a brother that I'm ecstatic with, grew up with, and he's running for office. So this conversation is gonna be real good. So, you know, I'm trying to keep up with Kyle. He be bringing the heavy hitters. So I'm trying to bring the heavy hitters here too, you know what I mean? And this guy, you're really gonna find it informative. Listen to what he has to say. So without any further delay, Patrick, please introduce yourself, let the people know, and let's get into this conversation.
Will do. Thank you so much, Kai and Kayode, for inviting me to this forum. I'm excited to be here. It's a pleasure to be here, so I could kick the truth to the young Black youth, because they need to hear what I gotta say and what Kai has to say and what Kayode has to say. But I've known Kayode since high school. So I'm gonna date myself. I've known Kayode since 1984, and we went to Cardinal Hayes High School in the South Bronx in the Boogie Down, the home of hip hop. So we've been close friends for a very long time. Kayode developed an organization called 4T's Production, teaching teens to think. And in the initial start of 4T's, I was assisting Kayode Bentley in his endeavors regarding working with the youth in the inner cities in terms of providing them with the necessary tools, economic tools, political tools, and cultural tools for empowerment. So I went to Cardinal Hayes High School, graduated from Cardinal Hayes, received a bachelor's in international relations and Black studies from the City College of New York, went back to the City College of New York to receive a master's in education, administration, and supervision. From City College, I went to Teachers College at Columbia University. I obtained a master's in higher education administration with a focus on higher ed management and policy and leadership. From Teachers College, I went back to school again and I earned an MBA in one of the top business schools, NYU Stern School of Business. And my concentration at the Stern School of Business, I did an MBA in quant finance, business law, and global business. While I was doing my MBA at Stern, I was doing my MPA, Masters in Public Administration, with a concentration of international economic policy and management at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. And somewhere between those two schools, I ended up getting a certificate at Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. I traveled the world, been to Egypt, been to Tanzania. I did some study abroad at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, been to Kenya, been to Dominican Republic, Haiti, Canada, of course, Colombia, Brazil, South Korea, China, France, England, Spain, several times. While I was in Spain, I was studying out in Spain, I received several certificates in decolonial studies and in critical Muslim theology, liberation, and decolonial studies as well. So I'm well-rounded academically. I have the westernized academic component to me in terms of experience and background, but I also have the street component in terms of the street cred and the street knowledge in what people will call the hood. So I have these two things working for me in which one needs to synthesize in order to kick it to our young folks and to present a worldview to our young folks that's never been presented to them before, because their worldview to a certain extent is what they see out there in the streets. And the worldview is bigger and better than what's out there in the streets. But if you don't provide the necessary knowledge, the only alternative that they see is what's out there in the streets. So I, again, thank both of you for having this forum. I appreciate the fact that Kayode Bentley is still doing 4T's production, which is much needed. And later on throughout our conversation, I'll go more in depth into that. But we need support services, programs, and educational programs, job placement programs that will empower our youth. And this is where I am fortunate in terms of my experience and background. In my former life, I was director of career services at Dominican College. And I have a very high success rate in terms of placing students, alumni, regarding job placements and different career possibilities and options, and also internship opportunities with my students. I did the same thing at Hunter College and Bronx Community College and the Borough of Manhattan Community College. Actually, at Hunter College, I created 2 initiative programs called Careers in Motion and Careers in Need. And what Careers in Motion did was I actually took the students to the work site. For example, I would take a group of students, first come, first serve, and my programs were always tight. A lot of people had waiting lists. I even had college professors trying to get down with my program. So I would take a group of students to the United Nations, and they would meet. They would take a tour of the UN, and they would meet with officials at the United Nations, ambassadors, diplomats, and we would be in a room having lunch, and they would have conversations with our students, with my students, about various career opportunities. I apologize for the music in the background, but I'm in the boogie down, and you know how that goes. You know how they do it in the hood, man. And it annoys me, but nevertheless. So I did the careers. Yes, I did the Careers in Motion. So I would take them to places like the UN. I would take them to Wall Street, to the New York Stock Exchange. I had my students walk on the floor of the stock exchange, and they were impressed by that. So I provided my students with the opportunities that normally they would not have access to. In addition to that, Careers in Need, I would create career panels and forums where I would invite careers that were in need of certain types of individuals. For example, we all know that nursing is dominated by women, that particular field. So I would invite men who were interested in nursing at Hunter College at that time, and I would invite alumni who were males who were in the nursing profession and graduated from Hunter College, and we would have a panel discussion. I did the same thing with women. Law is a field, a professional field that's dominated by males. So I would invite women, students from Hunter College, to meet and network with other women who were alumni who were lawyers, successful lawyers, and they would have conversations. And I would serve as the moderator, and after the conversation, the panel discussion, we would have a networking session. So these are some of the things that I have done in the past, in addition to the fact that I also taught at Hunter College in the Department of Black and Puerto Rican Studies. And to make this short, because I could keep on, right now I'm running for Congress in the 15th Congressional District in the South, predominantly in the South Bronx. And the 15th Congressional District is the poorest congressional district in the United States. And it's been like that for over 4 decades. Not only is the poorest congressional district, it is one of the most violent districts in the United States. So given my experience, given my background, I feel that it is important that my people in the South Bronx has the right representation to empower them and enrich them, not only in terms of economics, but in terms of politics and culture as well. And the current political leadership, and even the past political leadership, in particularly in the South Bronx, has failed the people of the South Bronx in terms of providing them with the necessary access and resources to enrich their lives and to empower them. So that's why I'm running for Congress in the 15th Congressional District. And in all honesty, no one's better than me to do it.
Patrick, thank you so much. Kyle, there you go, man. So, okay, Kyle, what you want to do? Go ahead,
first question I want to ask is, because I teach at a school, one of my schools in the Bronx, and I was told, because I'm a New York transplant, that the Bronx was one of the poorest communities, not only in New York, but like you were just saying, in the nation. And a lot of times when you said poverty and you said violence, those tend to go hand in hand. But could you break down for the people as far as what resources do they seem to be lacking that are having people engage in these type of activities, or encouraging, if you could say, those type of activities where they have lack thereof.
So, Kai, could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Sure. I was saying that pretty much in the Bronx, when you mentioned the district that you are planning to serve, is dealing with like poverty and violence, and those tend to go hand in hand. Where there's poverty, is typically violence, and some people can even argue that poverty is another form of violence in itself.
Absolutely.
Right. So, what are some of the things that are encouraging that type of behavior in those districts, and why has it been going on for so long? And how do you plan to rectify those some of those issues for the people?
Sure. At issue with the situations of the South Bronx is the fact that the South Bronx, in particular my district, is the most democratic district in the nation. My district overwhelmingly votes for Democratic candidates. And what happens when you keep doing this after decades, you have Democratic candidates who will run for office but really don't give a damn about the people that they should represent. So they take our votes for granted, and they take the people for granted. The United States is the wealthiest nation in the world. How could you have the poorest congressional district in New York City? New York City, the home of the United Nations, the home of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
How could this be? Right? And you are absolutely 100% correct. When you have poverty, you'll have an increase in certain types of crime. And it's a vicious cycle. And Democratic elected officials have failed the people of the Bronx, and particularly the people of the South Bronx. So people are surprised when I say that I'm running as a Republican and as a conservative, and they seem to be shocked, but not understanding that some of our great leaders, like Frederick Douglass, was a Republican. Some of our great leaders, Booker T. Washington, was a conservative. If you look at the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X and the structure of the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad and many more, it's a conservative value system. So, but we look at these things from a lens that's not our lens. I'm looking at it in a way to save our people, in particular our people in the South Bronx. So people tend to focus on the party, but I focus on the people. And I'm running against a politician, a career politician by the name of Richie Torres. Richie Torres sits on the New York City Council. In front of Richie Torres' office, you will find homeless people laying there in front of his office. And Richie Torres, who's running for Congress, does nothing about it. Richie Torres, 7 years. For 7 years, he is a member of the New York City Council. But equally as important, Richie Torres also, within those 7 years, chaired under New York City Council, was the chairman for the committee for NYCHA. And I know, Kayode, you know all about NYCHA, right? He chaired NYCHA. During those 7 years, what was happening in NYCHA under Richie Torres? Lead poisoning, which damaged our children in many ways, from brain damage to other health afflicted negative components. So you have that, health illnesses. So you have lead poisoning. Richie Torres did nothing about it. You have Richie Torres, who chairs the committee for NYCHA under the New York City Council for 7 years. Residents of NYCHA every winter suffers from the coldness of the winter because there's no heating system. The heating system in NYCHA has failed. Richie Torres, 7 years, does nothing about it. And this is the person that we're gonna vote for? because he's a Democrat?
Mm.
What Richie Torres could have done in 7 years, I could do in 7 minutes. But we're so confused and we're so brainwashed, not understanding the United States is a two-party system, basically, that we have alternatives. And we can't allow people to take our lives into their hands and not improve our lives. And Richie Torres, for 7 years, is in a position of power, and he has done absolutely nothing to solve the problems within NYCHA, and he chaired the committee for NYCHA. Why would you vote for a person like that? Richie Torres allowed people in NYCHA to freeze to death. Why would you vote for someone for 7 years that's been giving you the cold shoulder and leaving you with frostbite and cold feet and brain freeze? Why would you vote for a guy like that? He may look us, but he's not us. He's serving someone else. I want to serve the people, but Richie wants to serve his masters. So that's the difference, and that's why I'm running. I want to make change. But people should look beyond the Republican and conservative affiliation, party affiliation politically that I am involved in. And they should look at my record and see what I'm all about. And look at our history and understand that the Republican Party was a party that was founded in the Midwest, I believe Wisconsin, as an anti-slavery party, right? And my position is this: we as a people need to hold both parties accountable and not allow both parties to take us for granted. But somewhere, somehow, we allow the Democratic Party to take us for granted, and we see someone that's a Democratic candidate, know nothing about that person, and we automatically vote for that person, even if that person has done dastardly deeds that harms us, and we give that person a pass because that person's a Democrat. That makes absolutely no sense.
Now, Patrick, and thank you for that. Thank you for explaining that and breaking it down. And definitely, you made some great points. And I want to bring up something that you had on your website. I looked at some of your talking points and just some of your background before we had the discussion. And you mentioned yourself like as a rational Republican, pretty much what you were just talking about just now in reference of not voting for a party just because you're affiliated with them, but because they really truly serve your needs as a people, as a community in general. So could you talk about how, when did it change as far as, because again, you being a Republican, some people are gonna look at you to be real, just to be real. And I'm not saying this is you, but they look at you, oh, this brother's a sellout, or this brother's confused as far as political affiliation. And as far as people, Republicans, especially the ones in office now, they represent a type of ideology or type of initiatives that block people out, namely people of color, Black folks, brown folks, out of certain opportunities. And they're very conservative on who they let in or who they allow those opportunities to. So could you speak on that? Because yes, I do know the history that, Abraham Lincoln was Republican, like I said, Patrick Delices Ep. Republican, hence why we have Black History Month even in February, because of Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick's birthday. But could you speak on the different type of, I guess I want to say, Black conservatism versus conservatism from a white vocal point, vantage point?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot to unmask. And anybody, because I'm a Republican, because I'm conservative, and if anyone out there that thinks I'm a sellout, come step to me, and we'll see who's the true sellout. Because when you have knowledge of self, and people engage you in a particular conversation, they'll understand what I'm all about. So the sellout is not Pat Delices. The sellout is the person people in NYCHA freeze to death. The sellout is the person that let people in NYCHA get lead poisoning. That's the sellout. I would never let that happen to my people. But Richie Torres is a Democrat. And he's letting that happen. So what is the Democratic value system? What is the Republican value system? So when we look at politics, politics is about what is in the best interest of the people that we're representing. What is in the best interest of our people? And again, given the fact that the people in the Bronx, in particular the Bronx, the people in my district overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, they have to put two and two together and say, we keep voting for Democrats, but yet the South Bronx is the poorest congressional district in the United States. And it's one of the most violent districts in the United States. It's the most violent area in New York City. So people need to understand what's going on. In addition to that, it seems, given the statistics and the history, that Black folks tend to do better financially when Republicans are in office in comparison to Democrats. And that's another piece that we tend to miss. See, and my position is this: people can say whatever they want, but if someone is giving us employment opportunities and there's a situation where our unemployment is declining, we need to look at these things. Action speaks louder than words. So again, we need to look at the person and not the party. And when you look at being a conservative, I'm not the type of conservative or Republican that people tend to associate Republicans and conservatives with. And again, if Frederick Douglass was a Republican, Booker T. Washington was a conservative, but Booker T. Washington was about economic upliftment for our people. Frederick Douglass was a Republican, but he was about political upliftment for our people. Malcolm X is as conservative as one could get, but Malcolm X was about moral uprightness, eating one meal a day, not cursing, not cheating on his woman, taking care of his wife and kids, looking out for his people, right? Malcolm X was a conservative, eating one meal a day. He was disciplined. So when we look at these things, we need to look at these things through our lens, our historical experience, and our political, economic, and cultural realities. So we need to look at that. And people say, well, you're a conservative. What is it that you're conserving? I'm trying to conserve empowerment and enrichment for our people. Somewhere down the line, that has been taken away from us. I'm trying to conserve our rich cultural heritage. So these are the things that I'm trying to conserve. And even with that, if you don't have that, what's the alternative? Right? What's the alternative? What are the liberals teaching our kids? What's the role models that they're teaching our kids? When you look at these some of these music videos and some of the way some of these sisters who are entertainers portray themselves, some of the way these brothers who are entertainers or athletes portray themselves and act towards their women. Is that a conservative value system? Or is that a liberal value system where anything goes? Right? And there's this thing in our community where you got a group of individuals that are going around saying, defund law enforcement. And sadly, the reality is we need law enforcement. And when you speak to people in our community, they would say, we don't have enough law enforcement. We need more NYPD walking the beats, in particular in the South Bronx. We need a decrease in noise pollution in the South Bronx, as you saw during the Zoom conversation that we were having. The South Bronx has noise pollution in addition to air pollution, making the South Bronx the area throughout the nation that has the highest rate of asthma. And what are the Democrats doing about it? What are the liberals doing about it? So my position is this. It's a two-party system. And you're not going to say to me, you could say to Charlemagne the God, because Charlemagne the God is not Pat Delices. You could tell him that you're not black if you vote for someone else. And let me say this to everyone listening. You could vote for whoever you want as long as you vote intelligently. You need to figure out who is the best candidate and why that person is the best candidate. And also, what has that person done for me lately? What is that person bringing to the plate? What is that person offering to our people? And that's very important, because we have candidates out here that have checkered past, and we need to hold fire to their feet and say, what are you going to do for us? And hold them accountable. And as a people, we need to do that.
Patrick, you knocking it out the box, brother. I appreciate you. Doing pretty good. I got a whole bunch.
I tried, brother. I'm trying.
You're doing good. You're doing good. So I have a couple of questions here from a novice point of view. You know, I'm not in politics as I should. We talked about that a couple of years ago. Remember,
yes.
With Dad, and how it's important for us to get in politics. So I'm gonna be a devil's advocate, so to speak, and try and hit you and challenge you on some of the points. You said that blacks do better under Republicans financially than the Democrats.
Yes.
Can you have any proof or facts to back that up? Because from what I understand and from what statistics have shown us over the years, and Kyle, please come back with any questions you may have. We had Bush in office in 2000. I mean, when Clinton was in office, and let me clarify this: I don't take sides either. I know. Right, to Democrat, both of them are both sides of the same coin as far as I'm concerned.
I'm there with you.
Right? Okay. So my challenge is the financial aspect. That's the first question I have. Please answer this. When Clinton was in office, from what I understand, the debt was brought down, and when Bush got into office, he increased the debt. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was a fact, right? And then Obama came in, and he brought us back from that economic collapse we had in 2008, thanks to Bush and his mismanagement of administration, right? Brought it down. And now we got this president in office now who I don't even want to talk about where the debt is now with everything that has gone on. So can you explain to me or provide some type of facts for those who are listening and can tell them to some degree how blacks did better under Republicans than Democrats?
Sure. One good book people should get is Amos Wilson, Blueprint to Black Power. And he talks about some of these things as well. And people could pick up Claude Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth, and to understand that the policies that were injected by certain elected officials at the federal level, in particularly at the presidential level, and one can make the necessary comparisons in terms of Democrats and Republicans and certain elected officials. For example, even now, the unemployment rate for African Americans have lowered under this presidency. Now, whether it's the president or things that are taking place within the world in terms of international trade, global trade, in terms of certain things that's happening in the Caribbean, in Latin America, and in Africa as well. But there's other factors besides being a political party per se, or a particular president per se. But I know for myself as an individual, I did better financially under Bush administration, the son, than under Clinton and Obama. Even under Trump, I'm doing better financially than I did under Clinton and President Obama. And that's me as an individual. But there are statistics out there, stats that are available for people to look at and to explore the various trends between the presidency. As a matter of fact, and this may be shocking, Dr. Amos Wilson once said, the more Black elected officials we tend to elect, the more impoverished we become. And Amos Wilson lays that out in his book, Blueprint to Black Power.
Wow. Okay. One final follow-up to that, and then Cal, jump in if you want. Can you provide, or just for the people to, like, where can we find those statistics that show that we, is it an online thing? Is it a Google thing we can look up?
You could go online, but you could get books too. You could also get Thomas Sowell's book, Wealth, Poverty, and Politics. And it's like Amos Wilson's book. It's a lot of pages, and he goes into some of the things that were just mentioned by me as well.
Cal,
there's tons of books.
Gotcha. Yeah, Cal.
Yeah, Wealth, Poverty, and Politics. And he's an economist. Yeah, Thomas Sowell. He's an economist, and he's a Black conservative. And let me say this, I don't agree with a lot of things that he says or that he lays out, but there are certain things that he lays out that one needs to look at it and say, this does make sense. So I think that's one should purchase that book or get it at the library and look through it as well. And also you can look through various magazines. The Economist should lay out some stats, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times as well.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
Cal, you had a question you wanted to interject?
Yeah, as reference of, like you mentioned, Dr. Amos Wilson, definitely a legitimate and necessary read, also along with Dr. Claude Anderson's book. Those both definitely, family, you should definitely check out and delve into, get into a lot of their takes on the political climate and the financial playing field that we have allowed ourselves to either be manipulated by or take advantage of, or by being taken advantage by. So, but I want to delve into, because again, Patrick,
I don't mean to interrupt you. And there's some other books that are running through my head too. Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Manning Marable, who I worked as a research fellow for, his book, How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America. So there's tons of books out there that one could read, and if needed, I could provide you guys a list, and you could provide it to your readers.
Absolutely.
So I could definitely put something together.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you for that, for sure. And those are all legit books. And in reference to reading that, and Patrick, you're well studied, well traveled, and you definitely, you have your scholarship. Now, I want to go into more so of the label, because again, a lot of times, a lot of our community lean towards more Democrat, and somebody might say, well, why couldn't you just go into the Democratic Party and change that around instead of become Republican? Because as we see it now, Republican is associated with, like I was saying earlier, with a lot of conservatism that favors more so the elite, which typically becomes more so whites who have upper class as far as financial status, and then you have those who are maybe less than that status that tend to be people of color. And they say, well, if you're representing a Republican Party, which is conservative in some aspects, not everything, but is conservative, how does that benefit us as a whole when some of our people are yet to even be in a place where they feel like they even can take advantage of that even label or title? It seems to go against, is what I'm saying. It seems to go against the benefit of our people now and going forward, especially with those people who choose to be represented as the figurehead of the Republican Party.
Well, even with the yes, Kyle. Even with the Democrats, and the liberals, they're run by the elites too. So at one end, you got particular elite in terms of Republican and conservatives, right? And at the other end, we have particular elites too, with the liberals and the Democrats, with the George Soros and company. So the question becomes, at both ends, it's why don't we have someone like me in the Democratic Party? And why is it that we allow both party system to not be held accountable to the needs of our people? Because both parties have elites that run the party and the organizations for the party. Simply because we have something like Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean Black Lives Matter is for me. If Black Lives Matter, why is it that young Black girls are sexually abused and molested more so than any other girls, racially? I don't see people protesting in the streets about that. Why do we gotta wait until a Black man or a woman gets killed by a white police officer to protest when Black folks are suffering at the highest level? Where's Black Lives Matter when a brother that looks like Kayode Bentley shoots and kills a brother that looks like Kyle Dixon or Pat Delices? We kill each other more than NYPD kills us. And that's a reality that we have to face. But yet we're not doing anything about the gang violence that's taking place in our communities, in our neighborhoods. So what I'm saying to you is this: the same energy that we put out there when a police officer kills us, it's the same energy we should put out there when we kill each other. And we're not putting it out there. So because someone says they're Black Lives Matter, they're democratic socialists, that does nothing for me. You gotta show and prove. What is it that you're doing for the community? You can't give us lip service. So you have to do more than that in order to show us where you're from. So what I'm saying is, you could be a Democrat, you could be a liberal, you could be a Republican, you could be a conservative, you could be a Blues Lives Matter person, you could be a Black Lives Matter person, you could be any type of person, right? But the bottom line is what are you doing for the people in the community? What are you doing to improve the people in the community? So it doesn't matter whether you Black lives or blue lives, because all lives matter. So that's the key and that's the point.
Yo, Pat, man, you sounded like, yo, man, let me calm down. You sounded, yeah, let me stay focused. All right. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna touch on this black on black crime thing you're talking about, Pat. You know I'm gonna come at you, man. I don't know if we got enough time, Cal. We got to do a part 2 with Patrick as well.
I mean, KB, you mean to tell me the Bloods and the Crips, who are they? Are they are they Los Angeles police? Are they NYPD? Or do they look like us?
They look like us. But
okay, and who do they kill? I don't see them banging. I don't see, when brutality happens in our neighborhood, I don't see them banging those that inflict harm on us, because most likely they're the ones that are inflicting harm.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Okay, we got it.
So
I don't have to.
So where's Black Lives Matter when the Bloods and the Crips go at it?
Okay, so wait. So I'm going to try to be real quick and brief with this. And we want to get as much information as we can get in. So from what I understand, and again, I'm just a novice. I'm still learning. I'm not a expert at this. But from what I understand, the initial purpose of the Bloods and the Crips were to serve as guardians, because it was the police back in the days that was abusing us, right? So that's where Black Panthers came from, to provide food for the community and things of that nature. The whole premise of the Crips and the Bloods was an extension of that. That's how it started. Now it's transitioned now to where it's black on black crime. I get you, I got you, but just go to the source of how that started. The other thing I want to bring on, and because I want to get everything in, but for the sake of time, we can't. Now, we're talking about defund the police, and we're talking about black on black crime, killing each other. Well, Malcolm X said this in one of his speeches that had a profound effect on me. And we're talking about the police. Can you address the whole thing where you have, this is a two-part question, address the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists in the police department and the atrocities of the killings that they've been doing on us, Open Field 1. That's the first question. The second one is—
Say that again. There's background noise outside. Could you say that again?
No problem. With regards to the police and white supremacists in the police department, Ku Klux Klan in the police department, the amount of data that exists in regards to law enforcement killing Black people, and particularly Black boys who are armless, who are being called for no reason. We can't deny that reality that exists, and especially George Floyd that took place, which isn't a happenstance that just happened once. This is something that has been going on and has not been put. That's the first thing. With regards to the second question, and then I want you to elaborate on, Patrick, please, and then Kyle, jump in. Malcolm X said this in his speech. He said, how can you have more police in a neighborhood and more crime simultaneously? How does that work? So this all flies in the face of this whole law enforcement and their whole stop and frisk. So just address that, because I'm addressing that in terms of the black on black crime and the whole argument that's placed as into license what the police has been doing, counteracting the argument to defund the police because of the atrocity that's been going on. I hope that was clear.
No, that's I know where you're coming from, KB. At issue is the fact that number one needs to look at who killed Malcolm X and who pulled that trigger, right? We may know that there's other entities involved in that, but why as a brother am I gonna kill another brother in front of his children and his pregnant wife? Why would I do that? But I know that this brother's trying to uplift us, right? Why would I do that? Why would I do that to Brother Malcolm X, Minister Malcolm X? So that's number one. Why are we killing each other, KB? Kyle, why are we killing each other? See, let me say something. People say this, well, NYPD needs more training, X, Y, and Z, or the police needs more training. Now, if you look at it from a perspective that, in terms of NYPD, there's programs, right? It's not an issue that they need more training. There's programs within the NYPD in which Junior, the young kid who got cut up and killed in the bodega in the Bronx, he was part of that youth program that the NYPD have, the youth leadership program, because Junior inspired to be a police officer in order to change his community. But what happened? It was people that looked like Junior, right? Mistaken identity. It was people that looked like Junior who ended up killing him. For what? For what? It makes no sense. But there's this knee-jerk reaction with us. It's like when we kill each other, it's all right. Or when we call each other the N-word, it's all right. It's not all right. And someone needs to say that to us and hold us accountable, right? If it's not all right for white folks to call us the N-word, it's not all right for us to call us the N-word. If it's not all right for white folks to kill us, it's not all right for us to kill us. So what I'm saying is both issues in terms of killing us is absolutely immoral, absolutely wrong. But if we have organizations with a platform and we're only addressing one particular killing and focusing on law enforcement and law enforcement killing of us, which is a problem in which we should focus on, no question, no doubt about it. We should make noise about it, right? But the noise should be beyond marching too. That's another topic. Why don't we spend the same energy when we do it to each other? And that's the problem I have, KB. Yes, Minister Malcolm X was right, no question about it. But at the end of the day, one needs to ask, well, who assassinated Malcolm X in front of his wife, his pregnant wife, and his children? Who did that? And see, and this is what I'm talking about. There's this game, there's this scam that's being played with us, right? And we need to understand what's taking afoot. Now, when you look at the NYPD or even the fire department, we're looking at employment opportunities that are dominated by a certain group of people, right? Now, I mentioned Junior. Junior wanted to be a police officer, so he joined that leadership academy that NYPD has to offer. If we defund NYPD, that program is gone for our youth who inspired to be law enforcement officers. So what I'm saying is maybe we need more of our people doing positive things like Junior and getting these jobs within NYPD, within FDNY, within these other occupations and dominate those occupations. I could name occupations that, let me ask, what occupations do Black folks dominate? What occupations do we dominate? And this is the point I'm trying to make. So beyond the marching thing, let's train our folks to take these police exams, right? In particular, our people that are conscious, and have them provide protection and service to us. Maybe if that happens and we put our energy in that, there'll be less killing of us, right? We'll be killing two birds with one stone. One, we're getting people off of the streets and putting them in leadership academy with law enforcement in hopes that they become law enforcement. If that happens, then you have a generation of law enforcement, people that we're taking out from the street, educating them, preparing them to protect and serve us. Same thing with the fire department. Why not put our energy in helping those of us, in particular those of us that are unemployed, prepare for the fire department exam or any other type of job skills or training? So yes, we can march, but we need to move beyond marching as well. And we need to dominate these occupations in order to protect our people, to prevent what's happening to George Floyd from happening. Even to this day, I can't watch what happened to George Floyd. I get emotional about it. Just like I get emotional when I'm watching the news and a young Black man hits an older Black woman in the face, straight up punch her, and the Black woman falls on the floor. Where's the outrage with that? Where's the marching? Where's Black Lives Matter? And again, I'll repeat this. With all the Me Too movement and all of that that's going on, I have yet to see them talk about young Black women, young girls being sexually molested in the household by either a step parent, by a relative, and this goes on and on and on in our community, and it creates trauma, and no one's addressing these issues, right? Our focus is somewhere else. I don't see democratic socialists talking about that because their focus is not you or I. Their focus is on immigration. So that's another thing. I don't see Black Lives Matter talking about it because their focus is not on that. Their focus is somewhere else. Right? But again, you have, and these are liberal Democrats, but yet their focus is not on that. Even with the conservative and even with the Republicans, we need our people, both sides of the fence, to have the heart and the intelligence to do right by our people, whether they're liberal, whether they're Democrats, whether they're Republicans, whether they're conservative. And that is all I'm saying. In addition to the fact that, given the fact that we have more of us that are Democrats, in particularly in my district, it's heavily Democrat. We vote Democrats every election. It's a problem if we have the highest asthma rate, if we have the highest illiteracy rate, if we have the highest crime rate, if we have the highest homeless rate, the highest drug addiction rate, and the highest poverty rate. It's a problem for me. And at what point do we say, you know what? It's not the Republicans or the conservatives that are doing this, who many of us sees as racist, but it's the Democrats and liberals who we give a pass and we don't see them as racist because they tell us what we want to hear. All talk but no action. Whereas the other party, they tell us what we don't want to hear. Right? So you mentioned Malcolm X, KB. Malcolm X also said something else too. He said he'd rather deal with a wolf than a fox. At least with the wolf, you know what you're up against. The fox, you don't know when he's gonna bite you.
Don't.
So, but let me say this. But KB and Dion and to your listening audience, it's complex.
Yes, it is.
Because we are historically a people that we are damaged.
Yes, very good.
We are hurt, and we're trying to figure this stuff out. But there's so much things that we've been bombarded with, and it creates a lot of confusion, right? For the most part, and we need to understand the system. And let me say this: it's not necessarily one person, President Trump or President Biden,
right?
Because they have a particular history dealing with us and how they handle us.
Right.
It's more of a system. So when we look at this, we don't look at it as individuals or that's in Republicans, liberals, and conservatives. We look at it through the lens of a systems analysis in terms of what is in our best interests regarding economics, politics, and culture. And thus far, we don't have many politicians that have our best interests at heart.
Good point.
And that's the problem. And we don't have organizations, for the most part, that have our best interests at heart. A lot of money has been given to the Black Lives Matters movement, but how much money has been given to 4T's production? Right? And 4T's production's been out longer than the Black Lives Matter movement. And KB, I was with you during the beginning of 4T's production, and we were struggling.
Yes, sir.
And again, no money was poured out to us. And with the killing of George Floyd, the unfortunate killing of George Floyd, a lot of money was poured by a lot of celebrities to the Black Lives Matters movement. But at issue is this: the money that was poured in to the Black Lives Matters movement, why wasn't that money poured in to the South Bronx? From making it the poorest congressional district to making it one of the wealthiest. Why wasn't that money poured into 4T's production? Why wasn't that money poured in to eliminating student debt loans? Black folks in the United States have the highest college student debt loan than any other racial group. So why is money not, people want to solve our problems, solve it that way. You have a billionaire who I had an occasion to meet at one point, who ran for president unsuccessfully, who was the mayor of New York City, right? An organization he developed in which you worked for, KB. He didn't hire me, but you got hired. So I guess so. But you got hired. He didn't hire me. right? So you got a former mayor of New York, Bloomberg, spending all this money for inmates in Florida so they could vote. Why not spend all this money to give student loans? So Black folks, by the time they graduate from college, they could start debt free.
Well,
Right?
let me interject real quick.
Yes.
Bloomberg just donated money to Meharry College, which is down here in Nashville. I forget how many million, but he just donated. You know, so
and I think to some other schools too.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting about that? Donald Trump funded a lot of HBCUs and kept them alive. So this is what I'm saying. But many of us are in debt, right? Where's our 40 acres and a mule, so to speak? Right? Why is there not a push for that? The United States, and I believe China's a close second, has the most billionaires and millionaires in the world. You mean to tell me Bill Gates and company, Bill Gates, Bloomberg, and all these, and who's the guy in Amazon? Bezos.
Bezos.
Right? If Black Lives Matter, clear out our debt. If Black Lives Matter, don't give us lip service. Right? Because it's bigger than this. And this is what I'm saying. And we allow people to play with us without holding people accountable. And let me share something else. Between the Democrats and the Republicans, and you can look this up as well, there's more Republicans who are billionaires and millionaires than Democrats.
I can see that.
So my position with them as a Republican is, what have you done for me lately? Because I'm not going to let you off the hook either. So again, we need to hold people accountable. And again, Black Lives Matter has its time and its space and it's doing what it's doing. But at the same time, throughout our history, how many times are we marching? How many times do you see other groups march?
Right.
Right? We need to control these institutions that harms us. I say these things out of love.
I know you.
Right? I say these things out of love. And if people from the Black Lives Matters movement, they hear this, I invite them to reach out to me and come have a conversation with me. Because if you really are about your people, right? If you really are about your people, we need to take this at a different level because our people are suffering. In particularly, see, there's a tendency, we tend to focus on those of us that are incarcerated, right? And when they get out, we roll out the red carpet for them. Why am I doing that? They weren't a Black revolutionary. Why am I rolling out the red carpet for them? The same person that harmed someone that looks like my grandmother, someone that looks like my brother, my sister, my mother. I'm not going to do that. But the person, that doesn't mean I'm not going to help them, but the person that goes to college, the person that goes to a training program, the person that tried to do right by his or her people, right? I don't see us rolling out the red carpet for them, but it seems to be a badge of honor for those of us that commit a crime within our own community, within our own neighborhood, and we get locked up and we are released. It seems a badge of honor that we were locked up. There's no pride in that. The pride is not doing harm to each other, not doing harm to our people, and doing whatever it takes to empower our people and protect our people. That's what we should be applauding.
Very good.
I'm not going to applaud no brother that raped a sister or that molested no kid. Why am I rolling out the red carpet for a person like that? And we need to get real about this. Most of our sisters, our young sisters, are molested by people, a lot of single parents, women, allowing the household, and these people try to serve as a stepfather figure, and so we again, we are traumatized, and this is a story as a professional, as a professor, as a counselor, as an advisor, as a member of the community, that I keep hearing time and time and time and time again, and we don't address that. The foster care system is a disaster, and our kids are running there in and out, and no one cares about what's happening to our children in the foster care system. The K-12 system, educational system, is failing our kids, and no one cares about that. How many of us are business owners? How many of us have the resources or the access or the capacity to become that? Or are there roadblocks? And who is responsible for creating these roadblocks to impede our success? Is it Republicans? Is it conservative? Is it Democrats? Is it liberals? Or is it a combination of all of the above? The New York Times came out with an article about who dominates, who rules, who controls media, who controls publishing, who controls politics, who controls business, like the CEOs. And it broke it down in terms, and they show their faces. You rarely see Black folks' faces in any of these industries. And we need to hold the United States of America accountable, and we need to fill these spaces with Black folks. And this is where I'm at with what I'm trying to do. And no one else seems to be addressing this.
Very good. Bruh, man, we're going to have to do a part 2 with Patrick because he's bringing up some stuff. I want to, bruh. All right, so Kyle, do you have anything you want to add to that? Because I have a...
Oh, definitely. I mean, brother bring up a lot of great points, a lot of points that we also agree with. Again, when we talk about the bilateral system of and also the bipartisan of Democrat, Republican, you know, I tend to lean more towards the Democrat, but as the brother's saying is who serves us. You know, the key question is, like you said, what have you done for me lately, or what are you going to do for us in the immediate future, present and immediate future? And depending on what party that is depending on what party that we support. But my thing is this, and then again, this is just me playing the layman or the layperson, right? The average person to say, well, if you can't give the Democratic Party, why not create your own party? Why create your independent party to do on your own and not have to be part of the Democratic or the Republican Party? And also some of the issues that you brought up, we know these things. You know, you're an educator, you're a social, you know, social sciences and counselor and consultant, and all these things in reference of working with people, right? So like you said, firsthand accounts of certain things that we talked about in the last podcast. When you talk to our youth, you talk to people of color in our communities, a lot of times, again, dealing with the molestation, dealing with the violence, dealing with the ineptitude of medical resources and services, also the lack of proper quality, empowering education, dealing with the lack of environmental health hazards. Well, having environmental health hazards as far as pollution, noise pollution, air pollution, and all these different things that we can run into, and definitely in districts like the one you're trying to serve. A lot of these things, I know that a lot of times people are going to say, well, you know, people put themselves in that situation, so they need to get out of it themselves. But what I tend to see is not a lot of, in the media, not a lot of Republicans speaking out for the people in reference of what you're talking about, Patrick. And I'm glad that you are passionate and experienced enough to be able to speak on these things, not from hearsay, but from firsthand accounts and experiences. But how can these political parties, or how can we work within the political parties, like Dr. Amos, Dr. Claude Anderson talks about in their books extensively? People have to read the books to really go into the intricate details. But how can we serve our people, our communities within these systems that tend to be created to go against our best interest? and against our livelihood as a community, as an individual, as a family?
There's a lot of different strategies one could incorporate. But again, Amos Wilson laid it out in Blueprint to Black Power. Claude Anderson laid it out in his book Powernomics. Marcus Garvey laid it out in his Philosophies and Opinions. Elijah Muhammad had a strategy. I mean, the Nation of Islam was able to do a better job of getting our people off of what they called back then heroin and crack cocaine and whatnot than any of these government-funded agencies. Because of the words and actions and deed of Elijah Muhammad and his minister Malcolm X. And Malcolm X attested to it, even though later on there was some, but nevertheless, Malcolm X attested to it, and he still maintained it. So Elijah Muhammad, Minister Malcolm X had a blueprint. Our people, Booker T. Washington had a blueprint. He was able to develop Tuskegee Institute. We're not building schools now. We got folks running around for years saying they're building this school, that school, and they're asking people for donate, and yet we still don't have the school. Kayode Bentley has Forties Production, and he's struggling with Forties Production. And I'm running for office, and you're not going to have a Republican or conservative, a liberal or Democratic candidate nowhere on the face of planet Earth that talks like me. And yet, I don't see my own people who I'm fighting for making contributions to my campaign, so I could take my campaign to the next level. But yet, my opponent outfunds me, and he does nothing for the people. And a lot of his funding is from real estate agencies and corporations that don't have our people's best interests at heart. So in terms of answering your question, one way to do it is you get into either work within the system and you take over the system. So that's one way. There's a book and a film called The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Right.
And I recommend people to read it or see the video. It was a man who was a CIA agent and who ended up using his training for the CIA to uplift his people, to take over. Because for us, yes, it's about food, clothing, and shelter, but it's about something else too. It's also about power.
Okay.
And at this point, we need to keep our eyes on the prize in terms of the acquisition of power. Because with power, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, right? Because that's what other people do to us, because they have power.
Right.
They do whatever they want to us, however they want to us, whenever they want to us.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
To the point, not only do you have the Floyd situation because people have power over us, but you have situations like the assassination of Malcolm X because people have power over us, right? And you have situations where brothers, you have organizations like the Crips and the Bloods, like Kayode Bentley mentioned, the way they started off, and look at the way they ended up.
Right.
Same thing with the Black Panther Party, and you have a situation where because people have power over us, we end up harming each other.
Right.
We end up harming each other because we don't understand what's happening to us. And there's so much pent up frustration and anger that we need each other in the sense that we need to come together and realize what's taking place and really form organizations and institutions that will not only enrich us but empower us. And one way to do that is, again, the old saying. Sometimes there's an old saying: if you can't beat them, you join them. But there's I'll add another saying, and this is based on history. if you can't, the only way to beat them might be to join them. And one great example of that is the greatest revolution that took place in our history in 1804, the Haitian Revolution. You had individuals like enslaved Africans, like Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Henry Christophe, and many others, who said, you know what? We need to outsmart these individuals and develop a strategy. So what do? Some joined the British Army, some joined the French Army, some joined the Spanish Army, some went back and forth with all three armies. Why? Because they understood. They had the theory of the mind. They understood that the French and the Spaniards were fighting each other. The British and the French were fighting. So they understood what was going on. And they said, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they joined various groups, gained ammunitions, right? And they ended up doing what they're doing, to the point that they defeated all three groups. And Haiti became the first sovereign, independent Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. So we need to look at this holistically and use the necessary strategies that we have employed in our past history to uplift us in our current situations. And I don't see that happening thus far with any organizations that are out there. And it's not necessarily a knock of any organization, because I do believe to a certain extent people have good intentions, people are sincere, people are trying their best, but at the same time I do believe that people are also misguided. And sometimes in doing good you end up doing bad. You end up hurting our people more than helping our people, because it's the same thing again. A Black man gets killed, white police officer, let's march, let's go to the streets, let's do X, Y, and Z, and not looking at the long haul in terms of putting our people from the cradle on up, placing them in power positions, and really taking time to really position ourselves within these institutions to take over these institutions. During the beginning of this Zoom conference, I mentioned what occupation that Black folks dominate. And if I say to you what occupations that other people dominate, white folks dominate, we can name a whole bunch of them. They even dominate sports and entertainment. Our brothers and sisters, we don't even control the rap game. They control it. And they put out images for our young women and young men to duplicate. You know, if you think you're Queen Bee, and I'm not talking about Beyonce necessarily, the other Queen Bee, Little Kim, and the, you know, you're gonna act like it. You know, that's the image that you want to portray. If you want to be a thug and a gangster, and you're listening to, you watch your TV and you seeing what's out there, you're gonna act it out in your community. You know, so when you look at what's happening, it's beyond police brutality. There's also brutality within the media. Why isn't in the media we still have shows like Cops, showing white police officers chasing down Black men? Right? So that feeds into the white psyche that they could do whatever they want to us.
That's that program.
And it feeds, so exactly, or a lot of these movies. A lot of these movies, we're not the heroes. We tend to be the victims. We're the ones that are always dying. We're not the ones saving the beautiful lady and saving the day and saving the community and whatnot. We rarely see these positive images in 2020. So, and again, if Black Lives Matter, let's change the images that we see of our brothers and sisters on television, in the media, in the press. If Black Lives Matter, let us have more of us being CEOs, and owning our own businesses, owning our own schools. We own more schools. We need to figure out and focus what is the necessary tools that we need to adopt, that many of our ancestors adopt, that made them successful, to make us successful now, and to maintain and keep that success. Because what's happening is this: you think any of these millionaires, billionaires gonna secure a high-paying position for you, or are they keeping it for their cousins, their sons, their nieces, their nephews? This is what we're dealing with. These executives at NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whether they're liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican,
So hold on, Pat, because I want to.
they don't care about us.
I got you. So listen, we're coming to the final few minutes, and I want to pose this question real quick because we have to do a part 2 with you, Patrick, because you do a lot of stuff that we want to come back. So I want to ask this question. You brought up some very valid points. So you talked about power, and we have to work within the system. My question to you, as it ties into the support that we would need to do that and your supporters, is what is their ulterior motive? Because if it's about power and they have power, why should we even think that they would in any way, shape, or form release that power to help us empower ourselves? So that's the question I want to.
And KB, that's the point. They will never relinquish that power. And that's what I'm telling our people. And that's why we need to seize it. Whether we work within the system or we do something else, right? Because we may not need to work within the system.
Okay.
Patrick Henry, isn't he the one that said, give me liberty or give me death?
Yeah.
So, but again, we don't have the necessary, we need the necessary tools and in order to empower ourselves.
Right.
And again, one of the strategies is to work with the system and control these institutions that tend to harm us and have these institutions work for us. But at this stage of the game, we don't control these institutions.
Right.
So we don't even have a lemonade stand. So,
so hold on. So listen,
that's so much. I mean, because we do like you mentioned real quick, like we do have institutions, but it's about funding those institutions, about supporting those institutions. Because we had institutions and we have institutions. I went to Fisk University, so my alumni, W.B. Du Bois, Mickey Giovanni, Matthew Knowles, David Levin Lewis.
And we had Black Wall Street, and look what they did to Black Wall Street.
And the other Black Wall Street that was in North Carolina, we had many of those. We had those examples in our communities across the. Yeah. Right, but I think what we also, I'd be really not to say, and I know you know this history, but I'm speaking for us and our audience, is that I'm a big, for those who don't know, I love Lovecraft, right? The new series on HBO, Lovecraft, is dope. Y'all should check it out. And one of the things that they mentioned, Lovecraft. One of the characters in there, Ruby, she mentioned in one of the episodes, she's like, you know what? I always feel like my life is like, me being a Black woman, I feel like my life is constantly interrupted. Like if they just let me be, I could be fully who I know I can be and who I want to be. But my life keep getting interrupted. And that really made me think about like what we're talking about now, that we're really trying to be the best that we can be, and a lot of our people are. But again, a lot of times through violence, through miseducation, through poverty, through health concerns, our lives keep getting interrupted. And it's just like, we have these institutions, we have had these institutions, but there have been outside forces bent on eradicating those institutions because of the power dynamic in which you spoke of just now, and not relinquishing that power and destroying potential opposition to that power, It just, I just had to say that because, again, you did state it, but just to make it plain for the listeners, like, look, what Patrick is talking about is some real facts. And whether he goes to Democrat, Republican, which we may agree or disagree, but what he's saying is that, again, it all comes down to what's the plan, what's the goal, and how does it benefit us? Am I correct in that, Patrick?
Absolutely. And it's, again, it is a situation that we really need to support our people that are doing the right thing. And I cannot tell you time and time again, and I know KB could talk about this. KB has a good heart, but he did teaching teams to teach for Teach Production. We struggled. We had a hard time. I mean, at KB, you could tell me if, we went to politicians. We went to politicians who looked like us, who had the power and capacity to help us. And it did not happen. And they knew they could help us. They knew they had access to Bloomberg at that time. I think Bloomberg was mayor. So, and even if they didn't have access to Bloomberg, they had access to other things. At that time, there was college presidents. I believe at one point, KB, you met with Manning Marable,
Yes, it did.
who I ended up working for. But nevertheless, we are in trouble, and we are in deep trouble. And for my life, I went to high school here in the South Bronx. I currently live in the South Bronx, and I went to high school here in the 80s. And there's really not much difference in 2020 in terms of what's happening in the South Bronx. The other day I'm driving near Hunts Point, and it was in the afternoon, and I was shocked to see a young Latina woman in bikinis prostituting herself with Timberlands, bikini and a Timberland boot. And this was recently. I was shocked. So more needs to be done. 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. It's the drug den of the South Bronx with the new synthetic drugs that are out there, and people are just strung out.
Whoa.
So again, my position is, if Black and Brown lives matter, what are we doing about this? What are we not our brother's keepers? What are we doing about this? Why are we allowing certain things to happen to our communities? And it's more than giving school bags when school starts. These are things that some of our politicians do. It's okay, and I understand people need school bags and whatnot, but it's more than that. A lot of us are going to school online.
Right.
And a lot of people in my community don't have access to the internet. A lot of people in my community don't even have computers.
Yeah.
Where's Bill Gates with this? Where's the guy in Apple? Right. I'm sure, I mean, they steal resources. They take the resources out of Africa to build their computers, exploiting the workers in Africa. At the very least, you could give them a livable wage. But at the very least, you're taking the resources out of Africa, exploiting the people out of Africa. You could give our people here in the United States, given with the COVID pandemic, and people need access to learning tools, give them some of these computers and iPads and whatnot. No, that's not going to hurt Bill Gates. That's not going to hurt the guy from Apple. That's not going to hurt Bloomberg. But Bloomberg rather spend his money in Florida to allow prisoners or ex-inmates to vote. I mean, there's bigger issues out there, man. People are suffering.
Now,
People are suffering, man.
Let me interject real quick now. But when people say, "Well, isn't that not retroactive? Isn't that basically an act that we're criticizing for him as doing something good because voting is important, but then on the other end he's not doing this over here? Can we say that's kind of like kind of backwards in a sense, or
the position is if you do the crime, you do the time. Now there's people that are suffering out there. There's more important things than, let me say this. He's doing it for his own agenda. He's doing it because he doesn't want a particular person in office. That's why he's doing it. He's not doing it for the kindness of his heart or for the goodwill. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. He's doing it because he has a political agenda with Donald Trump, against Donald Trump. So whatever happened between him and Trump in terms of business in the past or whatever it is, but there's something personal there, possibly, but he's doing it for his own political agenda. And my position is this: if these individuals that have these type of resources, if they really cared and if Black and brown lives really mattered to them, we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in.
Very good.
And that's what I'm saying.
Got you, Pat. Listen. Yo, Pat, final words, Pat. Final words, few minutes, and then we're going to close out, man. We definitely got to do a number 2. Please have your final words. You're running for office. People need to hear your side. This right here is a platform that will give them the opportunity of really getting to know you, the candidate, and not get distracted or blindsided by the title of Republican based on the indoctrination of the two parties. So with that said, Patrick, your final words.
Said it well, KB. I'm more than a candidate. I'm more than a politician. I am a person who has the deepest love for my people. I want to do right for my people, for my community. I want to enrich and empower my people. And with that, I'm asking for people in my district, the 15th Congressional District. If you live in East Tremont, vote for me. If you live in Tremont, vote for me. If you live in University Heights, vote for me. If you live in Fordham, West Farm, Soundview, Longwood Avenue, vote for me. If you live in Morrisania, Mount Haven, Melrose, Morris Heights, Hunts Point, High Bridge, Belmont, Bedford Park, on November 3rd, vote for me because I have your best interests at heart. I will enrich our district, our community, and I will empower our people. So on November 3rd, vote for Patrick Delices for Congress. Don't look at the party, look at the person. And I am the right person for that job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. There's so many things I wanted to say in regards to that. But Patrick, man, thank you. We can go back and if for me, this is a guy that I vouch for. We grew up in high school. He worked with me for 4 years. If there's any candidate that's fit and just for the job, it's this dude right here. I vouch for him.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Patrick, Patrick said it all. My name is Kayode Bentley. You already know who this is. You know the channel. You know my handles. On Twitter and Instagram, it's Balogun. Logic, BALOGUN, LOGIC, the 4Ts website, 4ts.org. YouTube channels, Kayode Bentley, look me up, Candidate Advisor. Just do your research and look it up. I know we dropped a lot of information on you, so those are my handles. Cal, what are your handles? And we're going to give it back to Patrick to give us his handles, his website, so they can go to his website and support and donate things of that nature. But Cal, give your handles, then we give it back to Patrick, then we'll sign off. Go, Pat. Go, Cal.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, family. Definitely a lot of information was being said today. I'm glad that you all could be a part of it. But yeah, my handles are Instagram, DIX_KYLE, on Twitter, Keasy773. That's KEASY 773. Then you have my other handle on YouTube, Mr. Kyle Dixon /Precise Minds. And you can follow us on Grand Rising on YouTube as well, and also on Facebook, Grand Rising Collective Podcast. Just look us up, and definitely. So Patrick, please end with your handle. Let us know where they can contact you, donate, engage.
Absolutely. My handle is Twitter. You could tweet me at PD for Congress. You could also look me up on Facebook, Patrick Delices, PatrickDelices. And you could also find me at my website, www.voteforpatrickdelices.com. Again, that's www.vote Patrick, Patrick, Delices, Delices.com. And you could also email me at delices4congress@gmail.com. Delices, Delices, the number 4, the word Congress, @gmail.com. Please support me. Please make a contribution to my campaign. And please vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On that note, we're going to do the peace on 1, 2, 3. Peace.
For the last 7 years, Richie Torres has served as a member of the NYC Council. Within those years, Richie Torres chaired the Council's Committee on Public Housing, where he oversaw the New York City Housing Authority. However, under the watch of Richie Torres, NYCHA has been plagued by crime, corruption, violence, vermin, high lead paint levels, broken elevators, prolonged and unanswered maintenance requests, and cold winters due to lack of adequate heating. For 7 years, Richie Torres has been giving you the cold shoulder. That's why on November 3rd, don't get cold feet and vote for Patrick Delices for Congress to build a safer, stronger, and better Bronx.
My name is Patrick Delices, and I approve this message. Paid for by Patrick Delices for Congress.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say, ready for this. You know, I have patience.